Welcome to the Collingwood Rant. We're back for the second week running. Whoever thought it would get this far?
Well, there's no running. I'm just sitting.
Right. So, we smashed the Saints.
Oh, yes.
Those premiership fancies after they recruited about 19 players.
Well, we smashed them in the first half.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, what did you think of our smashing of the Saints in one half?
I thought the first half was encouraging. Look, it's one of those funny things, and we'll obviously cover this with a little bit more detail soon. But
we might not.
Again, I'm in the forgiveness mode. That second half, well, it's not ideal. I can sort of understand the what happened in terms of the slowing down and just holding that team at arm's length.
Okay, what do you think in the first half?
First half was exceptionally good. Slow start, which is the reverse of what's normally happened for about the first 5 minutes, and then they just hit their straps and score. Some slick moving of the ball, which was really quite encouraging. Just overall, exceptionally good performance. And again, just to round that off, kudos to defence. I'm sure you've got it written down. So I won't spoil it for everyone. He'll talk about it. But kudos to defence. They've been epic for 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's how it begins. Later there's running and there's screaming. Alright, so I've
been here before.
I'm not going to be as flattering in terms of the long-term view, and we'll segue into something else. Great effort. Everyone except for Darcy Cameron had a pretty good game. Tom Phillips didn't seem to have a statistically high game, as Driver pointed out. Was he tagging Hill or possibly Zach Jones, who you pointed out had a really good opening to the game? Watching on television, it's hard to tell, but they weren't getting that counter-attack out of defence, so I'm guessing that Phillips might have played as a defensive half-forward, and if he did, then he did his job. He doesn't need to get the numbers as high as that.
If anyone noticed that, just write it in the comments below. And
if anyone went to the game,
we'll ignore it.
One of those cardboard people. Rupert Wills changes the dynamic of that midfield. Oh, definitely. Brilliantly.
Yeah, look, he ended up with about 16, 17 possessions, but I don't think the numbers for him particularly matter. It's talking about this before. It's about the presence. It's knowing that he's the one that's going to hit the pack hard, and it changes the way that ball comes out, or it's either changing the way that the ball is held in. He's having a massive...
And it also helps the players like Sidey and that who are standing outside.
Oh, definitely.
Who then can get fed. I mean, I thought Sidey was probably our best.
It's hard to believe that our outside mids actually perform like outside mids when they can be outside mids.
Yeah, I asked you this before, but let's see if you might have forgotten. How many games do you think Rupert Wills has played?
712.
Close. At 16, he's 27, which is the incongruity there that you've only played, 16 games at 27, unless you're Tim Broomhead. But
you can look him up on Wiki.
Yeah. If you were looking at Wills as a 20-year-old saying, okay, you only got 17%.
Why would I be looking at a 20-year-old?
If he was like 20
and getting these stats,
you'd be looking at him going, that's something we can work with. I mean, one of the complaints about Callum Brown is his numbers aren't high enough for a mid. Now, we forgive that with Brown because we say he's developing. But in terms of experience, Wills is also developing. He might have the body of a 27-year-old, he's a big, hulking lad. But in terms of his experience, he's still got a long way to go. And I think, there's still a lot of upside there. I mean, one of the things that... what's the word? Frustrates me. is when I read about people talking about Wills, it's like, he's too limited, it's this, it's that. And, it's like, he's played 16 games. Again, you're making these diagnoses of very limited sampling. When he first debuted, I think it's 2016, I looked it up. I thought he really showed some great composure. I thought he showed some good kicking. But then he had a horrible injury run, and he missed 1 year entirely, and he was playing bits and pieces. Mass only 16 games in 5 years, so he obviously had a lot of problems. I hope we persevere with him. As you know, I'm a big fan of having some more mature physical specimens out there. What about Stevenson? Bringing him back.
Oh, absolute breath of fresh air to that forward line, which I think is what we called for in about 1982.
Yeah.
His impact was immediate. Now, I think he sort of ran out a bit of steam towards the end. And
I don't think it was towards the end. I think it was a bit earlier than that.
But you get to see that glimpse of how good this kid's going to be in those first couple of goals. That one where he's just stuck the hand out and just pulled the ball to himself and then snapped it around his body was just absolutely footy porn.
Incredible credit to Chris Mayne, who applied all the pressure for the ball to spill loose. Yeah, and Stevenson's got the panic factor that, like, when he's out there running around, defence is now going, oh shit, what do we do? Oh my God, he's now 5 metres clear of me. So they're really, him and DeGoey, they're really mindful of, defence that is, they're really mindful of when those two get off the leash because they're capable of doing a lot of damage.
He just has to stay now.
Ah, well, yeah.
You drop him, there's insanity prevailing.
I don't mind that they made him work for his position. You know, I don't mind.
Yeah, I thought it was a falling out.
Oh, that's right. No, Josh Thomas had the falling out this year.
Oh, good.
So,
There's always having no.
Yeah.
There's always something having a falling out.
Oh, who else was drunk? Oh, sorry, fell out.
Well, it's just, I don't know. We got to wait and see what this week's arguments are looking like.
Yeah. No, I don't mind that they've made him work for his position just to let him know, look, position's not a given. You always constantly got to work for it, particularly after the shit he caused last year, where I don't know how much of damage that did to our premiership aspirations. Sorry, I don't know how much damage that did to our grand final aspirations. But in terms of being a young player, I don't want him to get a sense of entitlement. And that's not just for him, that's anyone. You want him to work for it. Grundy, I looked this up because I was really curious. He's averaging 33 hitouts for the year, and with 9.72 advantage. And the guy I'm measuring him up against is Max Gawn, who's, you know, like the ruckman, like purely a ruckman. And he's averaging 26 hitouts with 8 advantage. Of course, Gawn has one less game because Essendon are a filthy club.
You could just stop at Essendon.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. But I just thought that was interesting that, you know, Gawn plays purely as a ruckman, whereas Grundy plays as a ruck rover. When Grundy's getting his numbers up to Gawn's figures, it shows that, you know, the thing we complain about most is tapping to advantage. Yeah, and that's what they got to do.
I know you've always been highly critical of him in that aspect. But yeah, I certainly think I started noticing that during this game this week, and probably didn't really look at it hard enough previously, but clearly those hitouts were going the way that we wanted them to go, which is to one of our players for a change.
The thing that annoys
Keeps this going, he'll probably lose the Brownlow to Gawn.
Yeah. In terms of digressions, the thing that annoys me just about the tap outs is he had about 65 of them in the grand final in 2018. They weren't, our midfield weren't capitalising off them. West Coast were just sharking him. Then when we played West Coast in about round 3 or something last year, the same thing happened. And it's like, how are you letting this still go? And then 20 games later, it happens again in the prelim. That's what really frustrated me. It's not like specifically Grundy or anything. It's like, there was obviously an issue there, and it took him, 2 years to identify, hey, we should fix this. No one actually looked at the figures and said, yeah, he gets 58 taps, and 3 of them go to our midfielders. Yeah, and that's not his fault. I blame the coaches, because that's a mechanical thing where they should be saying, okay, we've got a dominant ruckman, we've got a reasonably good midfield. How do we get a synergy between the two? Defence were brilliant. This year, against Bulldogs, they restricted Bulldogs to 34 points. They restricted the Tigers to 36 points, but anyone who saw the Tigers last week knows they're gone.
That's easy
They're
done.
finished, yep. And Saints to 37 points. So clubs are gradually, very slowly, just starting to, chip the defence apart.
I read somewhere that that's the first time that Collingwood's done that since 1912 or something, I think.
1912 probably wasn't a high score.
What pandemic did we have that year?
I don't know. Was it World War? No, Titanic sank.
It'd be botulism.
Yeah, so the defence is really working well.
Moot is working really, really well.
All of them. I mean, Howe gets to be, with Roughhead and Moot playing the key positioners, Howe gets to sort of jump in there and use his marking prowess to cut off attacks. He's generally an attacking player when he gets the ball. He'll look for stuff. And Crisp had a much, much better game.
Yep, definitely.
Maynard was good even though he copped a knock early. I think we had about 4 players who looked very ginger.
How much did the
about 1 quarter in?
How much did the turtle head poke out when Maynard went down with the knee?
And Noble,
brown trouser time.
Noble, I thought started not that great, but he improved as the game went on. I still look at certain players in that side though and think I want upgrades. I don't know what the ceiling is for certain players, and I won't name them like you did last week, which was just embarrassing. But
yeah, we won't name them, but here they are up there.
But there's guys like Quaynor and Scharenberg and Nathan Murphy and Rantel and these sort of guys who you have you see a lot of potential in, and particularly someone like Scharenberg. You'd hope that he could get a really good run at it and realise the talent that everyone saw in him that made him go as a top 10 pick.
Well, I did read the scratch match review, and there'll be about 12 changes this week, so that's good.
Just the only thing, though, is that second half.
Yeah, look, I'm forgiving.
I'm not.
I think once you had them stretched out at arm's reach, we chose to keep them there. We weren't anywhere near as attacking. The Saints sort of didn't really come back at us either. It was just like it became a stalemate again. But there's been a lot of games since footy's resumed where that's happened.
I mean, obviously conditioning is not going to be great because these guys are unable to train for 10 weeks.
Yeah, and I wonder whether there's a little bit of preservation that's coming into play in that.
Well, the problem with that possibility is Collingwood was doing this last year. They were piss-farting around for a while, then I'd try and find that gear. I mean, they're just doing it in reverse a lot of the time. You know, and you mentioned Stuart Dew talking at the Gold Coast with their victory over the might of the Adelaide Crows.
Yeah, I heard that. There was a little bit of background noise after the game, but he was saying something about that he instructed, the fact that they had a reasonably good lead at half-time wasn't enough, and that they should go for the kill when they've got the foot on the throat and be ruthless. And I think that's sometimes, I wish that's the message that we had in terms of, when they're down, don't just be content. Just run through them and destroy them.
Well, I totally agree. I mean, I think one of the issues with this club over the generations, one of the main ones, is they lack that ruthlessness, and I think if you look at the 1990 premiership team, it was a really hard sort of side with a great determination, really good focus. 2010 side was extremely talented, but just they couldn't find that, I don't know what you call that, cold-bloodedness to when they had their foot on St Kilda's throat at half-time. We could have just broken it, but instead we choked and started protecting the lead instead of trying to build on it. And I think that's what happened in the 2018 grand final too. And I think, you need to cultivate within these guys. There's no off switch. There's no lower gear. You stay at this high gear and you crush teams because there's going to come a time where you might level off and then that lets the other side back in.
Well, you look at Carlton and Geelong on the weekend. It's a classic example of that. 42 points up and they got comfortable. I mean, this is a side that obviously doesn't know how to win very well, Carlton. But
no, not Carlton.
It just shows that no lead, no matter how big it is, isn't
especially in the modern game. It's really... and I should mention it before I forget too, is the umpiring was deplorable in this game. Like, I just thought there were so many frees we didn't get. And I'm going to say it because we won, so it's not like I have sour grapes. The amount of times, like there was one passage of play where there was about 5 free kicks in the centre where we were tackling players and they were dropping it and then we were getting hit too high and we just weren't paid. It was like, what the fuck was with the umpiring? And this is the thing, is like I've spoken about this before, is I think it's very easy for momentum to shift, and if there's a few players who have downgraded or gone down in gear, they find it hard to switch back on. And in the team sport, you don't need the whole team to relax. You just need a couple of the players to lose focus at the wrong time, and that can have a domino effect. And then you let the opposition back in, like, let's say, I don't know, random example, the 2018 grand final. And
you keep coming back to that.
Yeah, well, it scarred me a little bit. And just finally, Josh Dacos, again, probably a little bit quieter, was a little bit quieter than previous week, but he still got 17 disposals, 82% efficiency. You've mentioned that he's now looking physically a lot more mature.
He's finding his place quite nicely, I think. He's got some panache about him.
He does, and I think obviously he should just get better and better.
I think so.
As he gets more game time and all that sort of stuff.
I'm liking the trend line at the moment with him. And to be honest with you, I'm a little bit surprised. I thought he was one that may not make it, and he's proving you wrong, which is, I think, what everybody's goal in life is.
Yeah, well, pity that you're all wrong. Any final thoughts?
No, it's good to win.
All right, we'll be back with a new segment.
Another one?
Yeah.
One of these things will be good one day.
Be right back. We're back with a new segment.
What's it called? Does this mean a new title card?
It's called Qua.
I can only type so many a year.
Qua. Sorry, it's Q&A. So.
Ah.
That was funny, wasn't it?
Ah.
So we're throwing open...
What we're throwing open?
Questions.
To the
questions
to the 3 people who watch us.
It's like 7 at least. And look,
is it possible that one is pretending to be someone else?
That was me. And apologies to anyone who might ask us questions on various message boards and that, just both so busy hiding the toxic spills and all that sort of stuff. It's really hard to get back to message boards, which is why we encourage people to come to our Facebook page.
Yeah.
That and those shameless self-promoters.
Try not to use big words. We're not very intelligent.
Yeah. What's intelligent mean? Q&A, Ed Hilley from the West. Why is it that as soon as they put on the black and white jumper, all ability to kick a goal from a set shot disappears?
That's one of life's great mysteries. I think if Leonard Nimoy was still alive, he'd be dedicating an episode to the unexplained on it.
I remember I saw Mark Richardson, or heard Mark Richardson speak years ago, and he was just saying, you will tend to get pretty much every shot in the pre-game warm-up. But then once the game's going, you put pressure on yourself.
It's clearly a mental thing. Because, I mean, you look, I think in the last 3 weeks, De Goey's missed about 847 attempts at goal with his little snaps. There was a kick when he was coming off the wing, and he kicked it, I reckon, about 60 metres, and the recipient didn't move.
Yeah.
And if you can nail someone that far away on the run, why the hell can you not kick it through that big gap when you're 20 metres out?
That's similar to Anthony Rocker and Travis Cloak, who has field kicks, they just take a step back and just nail it from 60 metres.
Yeah, I think you clearly take it when it becomes that age-old combat of not having to think about it versus having to think about it.
And
when you do it on instinct, you do it flawlessly.
I'm actually surprised no professional player has tried the routine of, as soon as they get the mark or whatever, just like hurry back and then kick it like it was a field kick, rather than sort of go back through this routine.
They still fuck those ones up though too.
Yeah, no, but it doesn't let that pressure in. And I think the thing with Collingwood is, because of all the scrutiny on Collingwood, you mess up, there's greater, uproar, feedback from, brilliant journalists. I won't mention their names.
Robbo.
So I didn't mention him. So I think there's even increased pressure at Collingwood for set kicks. You look at someone like Chris Tarrant, when he first started playing in, I think it was 99, but the early 2000s, he was a relatively reliable kick. But over the course of the first half of his career at Collingwood, he became a really unreliable kick. So there's something at that club which feeds into...
You wonder if there's still that reticence to also allow prolonged goal kicking practice. Just doing the drills. I think you've still got there's always that story of the medical professional saying it's too much wear and tear on the knee, blah blah blah. Well, fuck yeah. If their knee blows up 3 minutes at the end of their career, as long as they kick 1,000 goals.
How's that different to anything else at Collingwood?
So I think to sum up Ed's question, we've got no fucking idea.
Mark Ferguson, is Cox worth playing in the forward line, or is it better to just go with Myercheck and the great mix of medium and small size players, given that Moore and Roughhead can ruck?
My concern is if Cox comes back, say, this week, he becomes that target too much. I liked some of the chaotic randomness of, what we saw in the forward line that first half was very reminiscent of, people capitalising on opportunities and scoring on the back of that unknown. It spills, it's scooped up, it's snapped. There was one passage where I was a little bit disappointed, even though I don't mind seeing it, if that makes sense. But Elliott leapt over a pack to take a mark.
That's not like him.
And you think, it's not a bad idea for someone of your size and ability to actually just hang back now, let it spill through it and take the most of that opportunity. I think Cox at least does bring it to the ground if he's let's just say his arms are chopped constantly during a game. There is that opportunity there to feed off it, but it's something, it's like a dynamic that they're going to have to learn a little bit to make happen.
Yeah. I'd definitely play him at the expense of Darcy Cameron. I don't think you can get more.
It didn't take you long to hate him.
I don't think you can get more on Roughhead to ruck, because that's, like when we're playing Richmond, that means Moore has to leave Rewalt, and Rewalt's been manned up by Howe for about 7 minutes or whatever, or whatever the case is, and that changes the dynamic of the defence too. The thing if you go back to 2018, Cox was in that chaotic mix. It was just they were using him differently, because they were constantly rotating the mid-sized forwards through the centre square. I mean, the thing with Cox is, because he's a more of a known quantity, he does become a target, whereas Darcy Cameron's not as well known at this stage. The thing I really think that's important at Collingwood when you have Cox in the side is you really need to move the ball quickly. This shit they were doing where they're doing chip, they get to the forward 50 and the opposition's flooded entirely back, and they kick the Cox and you have 6 players hanging off him, and then supporters criticise him for not taking a mark. It's like, well, move the ball quickly. And I mean, they always go back to that West Coast game last year, which we won over there. He kicked four goals. And the reason he kicked 4 goals is they moved the ball quickly and they gave him a chance 1 out. The best thing about that medium-sized forward line, and it always works at its best when we're moving the ball quickly. So even if guys like Stevenson or to go in the lead drop it, you've got to leave guys who can swarm over it.
Agreed.
But it's got to the activity's got to come from the midfield. Ross, Putter, Katsimbarnis. Will we actually decide to play 4 quarters at any stage this year?
No. Next question.
Oh, I think we will. I think 2 of them will be next week, and 2 of them will be the week after.
As long as we play 4 quarters in the grand final.
No, I can't see us doing that, but I hope we do.
I think that's something that they need to actually do. I mean, I'm concerned. I still have panic attacks around the way we performed last year. Each week, I think we sat here and spoke about, we thought they were foxing, it's all going to come good when it comes to finals, but it never did. No. And you wonder whether these habits are bad habits that they start building into their norm. I'd like to see quite a few breakout games where they just go crazy bonkers.
And that goes back to what we were saying earlier, is, don't go down a gear. Just be ruthless. Cultivate with that within the squad so they know we are never going to switch off, but also cultivate it in terms of, hey, we're not going to fall back and play tempo football or protect the lead. We are just going to go win this. We are never going to try and save this. We're always going to go out and try and win it.
Correct.
Mark R. He's probably related to Chris R.
Or Mark W.
No, I don't think he's related to him. You know Chris R?
No. Who?
Chris R.
No, who is he?
Was a drug dealer.
Is he?
Yeah. He goes on roofs.
I thought that was a noise he made when he was shot.
No. So Mark R. Why do you guys hate me so much?
Because we don't know you.
Mark R. You don't know Mark R.
No. You going somewhere with this? Because I'm faltering.
I don't know Mark R.
Mark R.
He might be a journalist.
Gee. See, sometimes humour's just too good for me, and I mentioned something about intelligence at the start of the show.
Ed from the West again.
How many goes is he getting?
He's getting 2.
Give someone else a go.
Is the Goey really worth a mega bucks contract? He's not really winning games off his own boot at the moment.
It's a fair question mark at this stage, but I think you're going to have the good and the bad with him. How old is he now?
He's about 31.
23 or something? He's not that old, is he? 23, 24?
24 at least.
He's going to hit his straps. I mean, we know he's talented. He just has to build consistency in it. It reminds me a little bit of the tolerance he gave towards Dale Thomas. I used to see his past mark was, well, this week you get about 7 or 18 possessions and start having some flashy moments. That's growth. He's past that point now where we know he's got the flashy moments. He needs some solid consistency. Start dominating the midfield clearances. Kicked 17 goals a game, probably about minimum of 70 possessions, and I'd be happy.
Yeah, he reminds me a little bit of early Didac where everything has to be a highlight. Where I think sometimes it's just bring, just do the normal thing. It's going to achieve the same ends at times, which is what Peter Dacos was really brilliant at. He didn't go, I'm going to dribble every kick in. It was like, I'm using the right kick for the right situation. I mean, the thing with De Goey more is it's going to depend on how good his form is this year, and that's going to warrant a contract, commensurate with his output. So on current output, if let's say if it just remained at what it is this year, and he was asking for 1.25 million, I'd probably say probably not.
1.2?
Yeah. But the thing is, remember Dustin Martin, people were writing him off. People going, Richmond should trade him, and they were apparently shopping him around and all that sort of shit about 4 or 5 years ago. And sometimes it's just De Goey's got the physical maturity if you look at him. Psychologically, he's still a really young man. So, I don't know, you got to see how the way the year's going to turn out.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Jack Stone. Do you think that in 4 or so years we'll have the list to contend once Pendlebury, Sidebottom, Howe, etc., are gone?
Well, judging on the scratch match report today, we can get rid of them tomorrow.
I think the joke's on Jack. We don't have a list to contend now.
There's certainly some big shoes to fill, but I think hopefully within 4-8 years when they both retire, we can fill that void by then.
The one thing is, it really turns around quickly. If you go back to 2006 when we lost the Bulldogs in the first semi-final, I thought that was it for about 6 years. Because you had guys like Buckley, Burns, Lucuria on the way out. You had, Wakeland, Presti, Clement and Rocker sort of on the wrong side of 20. And it just looked like it was all going to spectacularly unravel. And then within 2 drafts, they picked up Reid and Brown and, Thomas and Pendlebury and Beams and Sidebottom. and they just really rebuilt quickly. It shocked me that we made a prelim the following year, but within 3 years we were already recontending, and we had a much better midfield than the one that was running around at 2002, 2003. Where in 2002, 2003, you had Buckley was a superstar, and you had these really good midfielders behind him. Whereas 2010, you had Pendles and Daisy at that time, and Swan, who were just really elite midfielders. And then you had guys like Ball, who were really good, and Wellingham in that mix who was a good midfielder. So I can turn around quickly if the recruiting's good. I actually think in about 3 years, the midfield should be, you'd hope, Stevenson, De Goey, Maynard, Dacos, and Tyler Brown. To me, that actually has a lot of promise. It's about guys like De Goey and Stevenson, even Maynard, just really taking the next step and not having careers which are just highlight reels, rather, having really solid careers.
You probably forgot to add Rantel to that this day, too.
I haven't seen him play yet.
No.
Gil, what would you do about the Essendon situation?
Gil?
Yeah.
What would I do about it?
Yeah.
Oh, you're saying Gil to me.
His name's Gil.
I'd probably just erase them from the competition.
See, it's actually funny if you look at this, because if they were thrown out of the competition when they should have been thrown out of the competition, we wouldn't have this problem now. We'd be talking about the club who replaced them, like Port Melbourne or something. So they should have been thrown out, 5 years ago.
Yep.
And they weren't.
See the trouble they keep causing.
Yeah. What would you do, though? I mean, no one knows if they're going to play this week, and they're talking about rescheduling the Collingwood Essendon game.
Yeah, that actually annoyed me a little bit, because the thing is the rules about how this was going to work would have been clearly laid out to clubs. Now, if you chose to take all of your 8 defenders and have them train together in a group, the risks of, if there is an infection like there is now, you've knocked out your whole defensive thing. Surely you would have just done groups and had mixes of different players. Now, obviously, you're going to have your defenders train together at times, but you've got to have a little bit of a risk strategy in place there, and Essendon clearly hadn't. So I'm not sure why we should feel sorry for them around that. Now, it would have been, again, explained to all clubs, not just Essendon, that if there's a component of your team that's impacted and gets infected and they have to isolate for 14 days, it's up to you to fill that void however way you will. Giving them the ability to fucking have a couple of days off so they can field a full side because they just happen to be playing us is staggering. Carlton get the watered-down version. Why don't we?
Well, the thing with Essendon too is you're saying, all the clubs have been briefed. Pretty sure all the clubs were briefed also that you can't use illegal supplements. But
I mean, the thing is too, is it's like some of this is Essendon's responsibility to make sure their players behave. That they respect whatever the rules are around how this potty thing or whatever it's called.
the dilemma is
going to work.
Conor McKenna went home and then came back, so that sort of opened him up to infection. But
I heard it was the house inspection thing is what's been reported.
Oh, I don't know then.
That he's left whatever the safety sanctum is, and they're probably here at home. They have to just probably go to the ground, come back home, and don't do anything like the rest of us. But he went on, did a house inspection, and then visited friends. Allegedly, is what a couple of your journalistic mates have reported and was on social media, which you can always take with a grain of salt.
So I know nothing about medical science.
Medical science.
I know about medical science. I
think you proved it all in one word.
Yeah, or anything really.
Don't know much about history?
The pandemic's going to move through the population gradually.
Is it?
Yeah, it's not going to be something they stamp out. People are going to get it. It's just a case of how quickly they get it. So this is going to happen with other clubs, and it's going to happen with other players. So whatever the AFL is doing now, it's going to become the precedent for what happens later. So I don't know how they actually handle this. I would have thought that the logical thing is, because when do you play the Essendon Melbourne game?
Was it at Telstra Dome or whatever?
When do you play it?
When?
Yeah.
Well, I guess they find a slot somewhere down the track because it's not been, deferred in terms of we'll play next week. They'll pick it up later on. Or if they have no impact on the 8, they might just say it is 2 points each.
I would have thought that would be I thought that would have been the...
well, they did that when
Phil Walsh was...
they put a line through the Adelaide St Kilda game and gave them 2 points each.
I mean, Melbourne might complain like we've done nothing wrong, but in terms of...
You get 2 points, shut up.
Well, it's probably 2 points more than you would get. But in terms of what the pandemic means for the league, do you think this sort of shows that the going ahead with the season is a little bit of a farce?
Well, it does put it on shaky ground that, you've resumed and then within 2 weeks someone's been infected. Now, it's either a massive wake-up call and they can still do this under the guidelines that have been given, or if it happens again, I think it then really puts a question mark.
The AFL has prohibited now players from tackling one another at training.
Well, that should suit us, right?
So you look at that and think, well, you're taking precautions, but again, it's going to move through the population gradually. And there's going to be situations, obviously, where players are asymptomatic. McKenna was meant to be asymptomatic, although there's some pretty damning footage of him not looking asymptomatic. But
Was he pissed?
No, he was like blowing snot out of his nose and at training.
Oh, that's unheard of.
But it's just like, if you've got like flu symptoms, you might do it. But in terms of, there's going to be players who have asymptomatic infected, but they aren't showing symptoms. And then they play games and they infect other players. And you could go like this, if you're, I don't know, freakishly lucky, you could go for a couple of weeks before you realise anyone has this thing. Because, I wake up sniffly most mornings because of hay fever. I know people who have the virus or who that was their only symptom. So how do you determine this is what I got against, this is what's, just a normal everyday occurrence? And what I'm just sort of saying is, at a certain point, you could go off the season and players could be spreading it and not showing very bad symptoms, and then by the time someone realises, actually we're spreading around, 60% of the league's infected. So I don't know, I'm just curious how they move ahead with this. It just...
Oh, this is the litmus test. I think it's going to be interesting. Tomorrow I think is Tuesday is when
tomorrow is Tuesday.
That's it. We've established that. Thanks for watching or listening. They announce how spread or whether any of other players in that group of 8 defenders has been infected. The thing is, I wouldn't think it stops there. It's obviously you probably shower naked with them, not you personally, but. They've done that. They've touched door handles. They've probably shared a bit Mac. They watched a movie together. They're doing all sorts of things.
Well, they're touching the football. So.
I don't think you can say it's going to be contained to that group of 8 defenders. So it's going to be interesting. I imagine that they'll rigorously test the whole Essendon list and support staff, all that sort of stuff. So tomorrow will be quite interesting.
Yeah. You know what I think Essendon should have done? They should have just pushed this through the court system for 4 years. Final question, Taz. Why do we punish ourselves following this club? It's masochism of the highest order.
Massachusetts?
I don't know how to pronounce that.
Masochism?
Masochism? Is it masochism or masochism?
Is it? I thought it was masochism.
I don't know. Is it
masso? Like as in schism.
Is it something that massos get?
Oh, no. You got to make this a racial thing? Yeah. You've never hidden your fact you hate Macedonians.
Yeah, except the fact I am one. So why do we do it?
For the women. No, that's not a right answer anymore.
Because women do like men who cry.
They love losers. Well, they're going to love us. I have no idea. I don't know why I keep coming back. I don't know why did I introduce my kids to it. I have no answer to this. There is something great about it when it's up and running, but when it falls apart, it's not much fun.
What do you mean when?
when it constantly. Sorry, I mispronounced that.
Final question from Alex Barker in Japan.
Konnichiwa, Daniel-san.
That's not at all culturally inappropriate, is it?
I saw it on the Karate Kid.
Well, that was made about 30 years ago.
So did I.
So a couple of questions, but we'll tackle this as a...
We won't tackle because we're not allowed to tackle anymore.
That's a good point. Doesn't Mark Robinson have a...
you mean Mark R?
Yeah, Mark R. We should get Chris R in. What are your thoughts on the 26-week season?
Are we having one?
No, what are your thoughts on one?
That would mean that we play each other twice, isn't it? Is that the way it works? So 26 weeks plus finals? It'll go on for a year.
Yeah.
At some point there has to be some equality to the draw. Either we do what we do this year and we play each other once, or for the sake of fairness, you've got to end up playing twice. I don't think our game, though, would lend itself well to a 26-week season. We'd be absolutely cactus when it comes to finals, and with our injury toll, we wouldn't even be able to field a side.
Well, I've always been a huge advocate of making the season shorter. You get to round 12. Oh, actually, I'll take the current season as an example. We're in round 3. Adelaide season's finished. Okay, no one's expecting them to make a charge to the finals.
Well, certainly not anyone who's wearing an Adelaide jumper.
So it's like, well, would you want to put them through extra games? And by round 14, you'll have like about 5 clubs from 18th to 13th, 14th, who you'll know that's it. They're out. Clubs from about 12th to 8th, you'll know. You're just making up numbers. Usually it's even a bit more. So you get to the point where I think you pretty much know what the 8's going to be. And 4 of those clubs are usually just fillers anyway. I'd actually go to a shorter season, just have everyone play each other once, and I've always sort of suggested what I'd like to see is a round robin in the finals rather than finals. So the top 8 all play each other once, and the 2 winners go through to a grand final. And that would still, the season would still come out to equally as long as it is now, so you're not making it longer or shorter.
Okay, interesting.
And the thing is, the bottom 4 would play for the top draft pick. Round 1, sorry.
I reckon that'd be interesting.
Yeah, and that would actually mean...
Might actually get them to extract a digit for once.
Yes, and that would mean clubs can't tank or shit like that. They'd actually be fighting out. The only problem is, what do you give the teams who finish like 9th to about, 13th, 14th?
Yeah, fuck them.
The only thing I could really come up with was to give them like an extra draft pick and to give them a marquee game, like Anzac Day, because I don't care, but... If you built this on like Queen's Birthday, where it was like, okay, the 2 winners go through and get that, and that's like a home and away grand final.
Wouldn't exactly motivate you to play better.
No, it wouldn't. So, I mean, that's the only problem is what do they do? But that's the way I do it, because when you get to about round 17 also, you get so many of those games where like clubs have sent players off for surgery. You can see some are just filling out the numbers. And all. If you had like the top 8 playing a round robin, at least they're the clubs in it, and you'd get really competitive football for 8 weeks rather than clubs. One of the things with Collingwood forever is, or with any club, once they know they're in the finals, you get that sort of thing of, okay, we're going to, rest players and shit like that. So you get a lot of null fixtures. You get that game, I think St Kilda, I can't remember who they played, but a few years ago where they rested 9 players or something. So you wouldn't get that with a...
it was Ross Lyon with Freo, wasn't it?
Okay, something like that. Anyway, that's my fault. And that would actually, that addresses Alex's other points about how you'd actually structure the season. I think you should have more quality football rather than less.
Yeah, I agree.
And one of the problems...
Quality, not quantity.
Yeah, and one of the problems since they brought in the 2 new clubs is there's a lot of quantity football where you just look and go, geez, this is a shit game.
But there's a lot of advertising dollars or media rights or whatever it is wrapped up in that, so... Yeah,
but I think, as I said, you still get an equal amount of games if you structure it this way. It's just you recontextualise what each club is playing for. I don't think you can have wild cards and all that sort of stuff because, I don't know.
University could come back.
They should come back.
They haven't lost a game in 70 years.
Yeah.
Threat.
Anyway, that's it for the questions. Thanks for the questions, everyone.
Keep them coming. We enjoyed that.
We'll be back with the match preview. Welcome back to the match preview. We are playing the might of GWS.
Yes, over there. Are we allowed to travel interstate?
I don't know, are we?
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
We'll probably be in quarantine for 2 weeks.
Yeah, well.
We'll probably play a prelim interstate.
That'll mean we missed the Essendon game.
Well, they're going to miss it too. We'll probably play a prelim game interstate and then get quarantined to miss the grand final.
No, my scenario for COVID is pretty much that we'll make the grand final after being undefeated all year. And on the morning of the grand final, they'll announce that 17 of the list have tested positive.
Yeah.
And the grand final will be called off. Because that's the only remaining losing scenario we haven't explored.
No. It won't be called off because the AFL, who in their wisdom are letting Essendon have some, space to try and get their players right and shit, will just be saying, Colin, unfortunately, you just have to fill the team. So we'll be playing all our reserves.
Cheer squad, I think they'll get a go.
And we'll lose by 190
Don't get off the ground after putting that banner up to stay out there.
Anyway, it's Buckley's 450th game. He's had 260 as a player and 189 as a coach, so he's 190. Illustrious list that includes Stock McHale on 878, Kevin Sheedy 635, Norm Smith 517, Dick Reynolds 511, John Worsfold 490, John Kennedy 463. What do all those other guys have in common?
912 premierships.
Yes, so Buckley...
needs to pull the finger out.
I don't think...
He owes us about 10.
As a player...
If he's going to get into those numbers, you've got to have some credibility.
As a player, I don't think you can fault his efforts to win this one.
Yeah, he didn't, though.
He did. Not through his lack of trying.
No, I'm just being facetious, aren't
So our reserves lost by 9 points to St Kilda.
Oh, Jesus. Is that possible? I read that match review. Surely we won by about 800 goals.
I'll just go through I won't go through all of them. I'll just cite the ones I think might be a chance. Flynn Appleby played on half-forward flank, so that's an interesting thing. He kicked 2 goals.
Next.
Atu Bosavanuji, I don't know if I can pronounce that right, sorry.
On the Bossanuji.
Used his speed to his advantage across half-forward. Some minutes in the midfield. Pressure around the football was impressive. Looks threatening at times. Tim Broomhead, 21 disposals out of the 4 live bursts. Kicked 2 majors. Skill level very good. Coxie, 13 marks, 1 goal.
I'm just going to jump in here. He'll get a game this year, Broomhead.
I'll have to. I think they'll as I said before, I think they'll rotate players to keep him fresh.
He'll probably break his leg again, but he'll get a go.
Yeah. Will Kelly, 2 goals and 7 marks playing forward as a lead-up option, which is interesting.
That one I got a little bit excited about.
So you have... I think Kelly was identified as centre-half back, and Appleby has obviously been played as a back pocket, but now you're playing these guys as forwards. Nathan Murphy started half back and then moved on the wing. Murphy's first opportunity on the wing showed promising size. Used confidence to hit difficult targets. I would have thought he would have used the football. Stepped up from the Richmond game the previous week. Isaac Quain, a running carry off half-back line was good. Jay Rantel, work rate king, big GPS numbers. Mainly played through the midfield. First full game since the return.
He'll get a W soon.
Scharenberg, breaking lines out defence with his risk-taking, positive impact. Braden Sire, played midfield all day. Connection with Max Lynch, the ruckman. In the ruck was positive with a number of clearances. Josh Thomas, dropped from the senior side, returned for good attitude. Imagine returning with a shit.
Hi everyone, I'm here to play football today.
Imagine returning like with a Hollywood attitude, just sort of walking. I'm too fucking good for this.
He's just sitting in the corner with the flannies on, having a dart.
Yeah. I mean, that would be great to see in the report.
I'm not here to carry you lot.
Yeah, return of a shit attitude, but it was great. I've played in a losing grand final.
He brought his mum.
18 disposals and 2 goals, so he did have a good game. Spent time up forward and in the midfield. Adam Treloar, there's a blast from the past.
I remember him.
First hit out since the Marsh series. Ran up the game, found plenty of the ball. That's good. Plenty of time in the midfield breaking lines and providing the football to the forwards. It's fun to clarify. It's like providing football to the forwards as opposed to who else was you providing.
Kicking it out in the full 20 times. Well done. That's a positive sign.
A solid 4-quarter effort.
Yeah, I don't think they'll rush him back this week.
Who asked was that?
Whose ass was that?
Who asked about the 4 quarters? Varco. Rebound option off the half-back line. Use his speed to carry the football. He killed him in the qualifications. What else was he going to carry? Starting to hit full fitness. Leadership with young players impressive. I'd love to be an experienced player in the reserves and just sort of like ordering young players around. Just, fucking get over there.
Give me a pizza.
Tom Wilson, mainly played on the wing, spent a brief time up forward. Aerial skills very good. Significant growth in his game since arriving at the club. Tom Wilson's the basketball scholarship. Who they compared to Pendlebury.
Was he stopped kicking goals like this?
Yeah.
Good.
That's Jordan.
That's significant improvement.
So we're playing GWS. I know nothing about them other than Heath Shaw still plays for him and he provided a beautiful setup for a goal last week. Unfortunately, it wasn't to his own teammate.
They're struggling at the moment. We'll win this by 10 goals.
Well, you brought up a point that, how much is the grand final failure scarred them? But I think they started the season okay until the break. They
won round 1, didn't they?
Yeah.
But that doesn't count because that was 100 years ago.
And I think they beat Richmond in the pre-season comp.
Yeah, everyone's beaten Richmond. That's no achievement.
We haven't.
Curse your logic.
It's not logic, it's facts. Who do you think will come in? So, you think Darcy Cameron's a little bit at risk? Again, Tom Phillips, I don't know if he played that tag in defensive role.
Yeah, I think those two would be the ones. Yeah, look, without knowing whether Phillips was in that tagging role, that could change that. He seems to be a bit of a favourite. I think Cameron could be the change. Cox comes in for Cameron. As much as Grundy can ruck out a game, I think it's good to have that insurance policy there. I think we need to see what Cox is capable of again.
I think the 2 Browns are also a little bit vulnerable.
Oh, no, I don't want to see Tyler drop though.
I don't either, but I think they might look at it again, just rotating players.
That would be the logic behind some of it.
So I think Tyler could be a chance to go out. In terms of the guys they've named, Treloar obviously.
Take a pick.
Treloar they want in the side. I'm guessing that the way Buckley looks at it is Wills and Sire will go for the same spot. So if Sire comes in, it'll be at the expense of Wills. And of the other guys, I mean, I don't know. Scharenberg's still in their sight, and Quaynor obviously must be in that team, and he would be eyeing, I imagine, Noble's spot.
Yeah, that'd be a fair statement.
So you probably got like a few players, a few inexperienced players who might be vulnerable in terms of who's coming up. Trelaw's the only one I think would be an arbitrary change. Where
First week back though, I think that's with someone who's had a bit of a dodgy pre-season and went down with the soft tissues. I don't know whether they want to. I think they want to see how he pulls up this week, and I still think they'll give him another week off. So I expect him to play.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, again, we don't know their conditioning and shit like that. But I think in terms of their moving forward, he's the one guy they'll find a spot for regardless. Whereas the others are still speculative. I mean, I'd love to see Scharenberg in there full time. As I suggested last week, I'd like to see Maynard in the midfield. You got a lot of guys like Murphy, Scharenberg and Quaynor who could play that role. Yeah, you've got Tom Langdon sort of on the horizon there. So
wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. So they've got options for the defence. They don't have as many options for the midfield. The midfield, the one query if it, again, will change the dynamic of how it operated, but it is still very one-paced in terms of, there's no one with breakaway speed or anything like that in that midfield.
No, and that's where you see Stevenson being a rocket in the future.
Yeah.
Get that one?
So what's your tip for this game?
I think we'll win. I'm confident. So we're probably Cactus.
It'll be an interesting game given they beat us in the prelim, whether there's any feeling of redemption, atonement to make up for, that really bad game. I just want to see a consistent performance. I obviously don't want to see us lose, but I'll accept if we lose if we're outplayed. I don't want to see this shit like the prelim last year where for 3 quarters we didn't turn up and then we decided to play 20 minutes of the last quarter and we fell short. I want to see that consistency applied week in, week out.
Mm-hmm.
And then, again, I'll wear losses. I won't like them, but I'll wear them. I think we'll win by 61 points.
Well, it's confirmed. It's a 10-goal win.
Yep. All right, cool. Any last thoughts?
No, just go out there and win Woods. Keep it going.
Yep. Subscribe to our channel. Like our videos.
Listen to our podcasts.
Yep.
Buy our recipe books.
Yep. And we had some issues with the podcast. They've been rectified.
Yep.
And as I said, unfortunately, we don't get back to the message boards as much as we'd like. So if you leave messages on Facebook, we'll definitely see them.
Because we're obsessed with that.
Yes, we are. And hopefully Pies produce something meaningful this week. Until then, later.
Bye. Yeah, we're winning.